Say hello to myself and Sumana. Thanks for joining. This is my friend Sumana. I wanted to start before we kind of dived into our topic today and just kind of tell everybody hi Laura, how we met and how our friendship kind of formed so quickly. You know what I mean? She reached out to me on LinkedIn, right?
Yeah.
And just said, hey, we have a mutual friend, and I'd really love to, chat with you. It looks like we're into like similar things. So we ended up getting on the phone, and like an hour and a half later, we were like, I seriously got off that phone call, and I was like, I feel like I've known her my entire life. Such a wonderful, cool person, and I'm so happy to have you in my life, and thank you for coming on today. We have Ben, Ashley, Laura, Garrett. Let's see who else.
I
Yep,
love it. My crew is there.
your
I know
crew
all
is
these people.
here. They've all come to see you. That's how it goes. I swear. Like every time I bring people on to do like these talks, everybody's like, I gotta go see my people. It's awesome. I love it. And
I
then,
love it.
I get to meet them as well. So it's super fun.
I love
But
it.
what I want to do is kind of give everyone a little background about Sumana and what she's up to. Um, you're a boss, basically. You are a boss lady, killer leader. She works in the healthcare field, right? And she is a super knowledgeable on wellness in the workplace, what it takes to kind of understand wellness as a whole, all the different layers that go into wellness. And I think your kind of your background led you into becoming passionate about this, and that's what kind of started your journey to creating wellness shots. um, so what I wanted to do before we even dove in, and I don't mean to take away from you at all, but this is kind of something I wanted to bring up to anybody who's listening right now. And we're not going to dive too much into this topic because I know that it's a very sensitive topic and it's personal to each and every one of us. But I wanted to just mention that Sumana has been a huge resource for me in my consulting when it comes to kind of helping my clients understand COVID-19 and how they can keep themselves, their teams, and their customers safe. She's given me plenty of tips and tricks and things that I didn't even know I should be doing or should be consulting my clients on how to do that. And so I just wanted to mention that straight out, straight before we get into anything, that she's such an amazing resource. And we talked yesterday that, like, if anybody's struggling with implementing new policies and procedures so that they can kind of be as safe as possible, we want you to feel comfortable to reach out to us, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You're right, Rebecca. And the introduction, absolutely. I 100% agree. We chatted on the phone for probably an hour and a half, and it was unreal how connected I felt. And it's really super cool when you meet people through these like organic, sort of routes, and then you just end up becoming friends. So I'm so super happy that I got to meet you. Um, so with the respect to COVID, I don't want to get into too much details about it, but I do want to urge people to take their public health guidelines. It doesn't matter where you live. I'm in Canada, in Alberta, but it doesn't matter where you are. I really do urge people to follow your public health guidelines. Listen to your public health experts. If there are things that you need to be doing, you should be doing them. If you're isolating, isolate. I am isolating right now for a couple more days. So it's not the best thing, but it is something we just have to do. So that is my biggest sort of urge to people. We're still in this pandemic. It's getting worse. I don't think it's getting any better, but we do have a vaccine and things hopefully will change. But until then, just hold on for a little bit longer and really, really do try to listen to your public health experts, because we are making these guidelines and these policies to help you public. And I've been in infectious diseases like my whole life. I have a bachelor's in microbiology degree, and then all my public health master's MPH folks who are watching this live, we did our graduate studies together. So public health is really close to my heart, and infectious diseases is really close to my heart. So this is something that I think we should all just be paying attention to, until things start to settle down, whenever that may be.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, you've been such a resource for me, and I want to, kind of let everyone know that a lot of the things that I do, in restaurant consulting, food and beverage consulting, is, I've had to kind of help them get, change things around so that they're staying compliant, and just making sure that they're able to keep everyone safe. And so I
Mm-hmm.
just wanted to start our topic off with that, because you are so knowledgeable, obviously, studying infectious disease in itself, but you've been able to kind of put things into words that are more digestible, I feel like, for a lot of people to understand. So again, if anybody wants to have like a private conversation about this, please reach out. We'd be happy to set something up. And again, I don't want to, take too much of the time and kind of go into that topic, but I did want to mention it because you're so knowledgeable, and you're such a resource in that platform. So
Yeah.
obviously, you work in public health and infectious disease, but on top of that, you have created wellness shots, which is a super cool platform. I hope everyone has the opportunity to go and check it out. But can you tell everyone what wellness shots is?
Yeah. Maybe before I tell you what wellness shots is, I can tell you why I started wellness shots. I think you're right that I do, my day job, my 9 to 5 is in infectious diseases, and I've been doing it for 8 years, over 8 years now. But it was actually during the pandemic, in probably the spring of this past year, that I realized that there's something more that I wanted to do to help people, having gone through my own sort of personal crisis in my personal life, many years ago, and just sort of seeing how the world was changing with this pandemic. I really had to almost stop and pause for myself and realize that there is a gap in knowledge between what we perceive our health to be and what we think our wellness is, and how do we sort of bridge that gap together. So I figured, well, we think about in infectious diseases, if you get a vaccine, you get a shot, or if you go party, you take a shot. And I'm like, oh, let me make something that is kind of an easy to digest shot. Whether you want to drink it, whether you want to sing along with it, it doesn't matter. I wanted to create something that was around this wellness dimensions, like all of them. Actually, at one point, I thought I wanted to focus on all the different dimensions of wellness, but the concept was that it needs to be simple, it needs to be educational, and I want it to be fun and engaging, so people don't think that learning about wellness or practicing wellness is a job, right? We're all
Yeah.
busy all day long, right? I didn't want to make something that was an additional task in our already busy life. I wanted to sort of make it in a way that these ideas that I'm presenting, that are backed by research, also are easy to incorporate into our day-to-day life. So that's where wellness shots came to be.
Well, and I love that, there are so many different layers to what wellness means. And you should
Mm-hmm.
definitely, I want to hear about all of those. But one thing I do want to say is that I feel like people, especially going into 2021, a lot of us have had, it's so hard. A lot of businesses have had it so hard in this last year, but they were already experiencing an industry, especially in what I do, and even in your industry as well, that's just hard day in and day out. It's always
Mm.
hard. And so wellness is not just about like getting up and um, you know making sure you exercise, right? Or drink a smoothie for lunch. That's not the wellness that we're talking about, although it's important, absolutely. And that's, taking care of your body is absolutely important, and getting that exercise. But what I find so interesting, and what I love that you focus so much about, is almost, the wellness and your mindset behind having
Mm.
a well mind. I know for myself in this industry, I've experienced burnout. I've experienced, times where I just couldn't even get it together. And I know so many people struggle with that too. And they're going into this 2021 with like hopes that things are going to get better, but they're in a place of like, I just can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And a lot of what you talk about is just those kinds of things, how to switch that in your mind,
Yeah. So yeah, basically, we think about, when I started to think about wellness shots, even before the name came to be, even before this brand came to be, I thought, well, we focus so much, especially with the kind of work that I do in public health, is we think about health as, do you have a disease? Do you not have a disease? And, if you don't have a disease, that means you're healthy. Your health is okay. But health and wellness are two completely different concepts.
Yeah.
And wellness for me is more about like, how are you living? Like, how do you sort of incorporate not just your, you could have a disease and still have wellness in your life. Like, how do you sort of now continue to live a more balanced, holistic lifestyle despite the crisis, despite the illness, despite whatever else is happening in your life? Because let's be real, things are going to be chaotic whether we like it or not. We're living in chaos right now. So for me, it was really important to sort of think about that balance between health and, you're right, exercise. People say, oh, you got to exercise every day. You got to eat a healthy diet every day. Sure, all of that makes sense. But what about your intellectual wellness? What about workplace wellness? We spend how much, I don't know, a third of our lives at work. And so that concept needs to almost be how we're living versus just thinking of it as a state of being. That's probably the best way I can describe it.
No, and I think that's beautiful. And again, I think that it's just kind of perfect that we scheduled this to be, our first leadership talk in 2021, because I do know where people are at, right now. I feel it. I see it every single day with my clients and my friends and my family, where, it's almost like, we're so grateful. Like I said, we're so grateful that, 2020 is over, but we're also sitting here wondering, are we going to make it through 2021? Is there a light at that end of the tunnel? And I think so much of it has to come back to you and yourself and how you're perceiving what's going on around you, and controlling the things that you have control over makes the biggest difference in not feeling overwhelmed by the things that you cannot control.
Yeah, I totally get that. I mean, with this whole pandemic and with the way the world is going right now, we're all feeling a sense of like, how do we control things that are out of our control, right? People are telling us, oh, you need to be locked up in your house, you need to be self-isolating, and now we've lost our liberation, we've lost our control to go about and do our things. So how do we maintain our holistic wellness despite the fact that we have lost control over all the things that we could do, not being able to hug our friends, not being able to go to the movies, like all of these things that are just so simple. The pandemic has basically changed everything. And I don't want to keep talking about the pandemic, but I think that was, for me, the turning point, because I've been thinking about this idea for, I don't know, maybe a little over a year now. But when the pandemic put a brake on our lifestyle, I had to think about, well, wellness is important now because I am alone and I need to really figure out how I can take care of myself, but also make sure that the people that I love and care about are also being educated. So the YouTube videos that I made were basically for a handful of people. I'm like, I don't think anyone's going to watch it.
And they do. And, and that was what was cool when I met you, and why I wanted to share you with, this group. And I'm, so happy to have your crew come along too, because, no matter what industry you're in, it was ironic how you and I had almost the same experiences through our careers in completely different industries. And I thought, wow, okay, so this is going to be an interesting kind of spin on things, because, well, and not even an interesting spin on things, but just kind of raising awareness that you're not alone in this industry, and you're not the only one experiencing all of these things. All of these other industries are as well. And I thought, oh, this is a great time too to kind of bring in experts from different industries to get different perspectives, because I think a lot of times And I know for the food and beverage industry in particular, we get lost in the fact that, the industry is what it is. It's hard, it's nights, it's weekends, it's holidays, it's 18-hour days, it's all of these things that we forget that, the healthcare industry can also be the same way. That,
Mm-hmm.
all of these other industries are experiencing the same things. And so there are solutions. And I know for myself, one of the biggest solutions that I talk about is building a team around you. What leads to burnout the most? What leads to feeling overwhelmed in the business that you're in, and all of these things is not having a team, a support system behind you, not having a team, not having leaders that can effectively lead, and things
Mm-hmm.
like that. But here was what was an interesting conversation with us, and this is one thing that I wanted to bring up about myself because I thought it could be really relatable to everybody else in this group. Even though I knew that the solution was to build a team, and I went and built teams, and I've learned how to master the art of building teams, I forgot to kind of fix myself along the way, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is one thing
Mm-hmm.
that we kept talking about, was I wasn't necessarily burnt out in the same way that others are burnt out. Like I think there's two different types of people who get burnt out in industries. And one are like, I'm so burnt out, all I want is a day off. I was burnt out in the fact that I had built my career and focused only on that career, that I had forgotten to go out and get a life. So when I
Mm-hmm.
fixed a problem like building teams, and I had well-oiled machines behind me, and I had all of these people supporting me in the role that I was in, that and was, I was allowed to go out and have a life and experience, the joy of being successful in your career and also have a successful life. I didn't have a life. And then I
Mm-hmm.
felt guilty, almost
Yeah.
guilty for not being at work, guilty for, wanting that life and things like that. So, it's just kind of interesting when we were talking just about how I almost had like the flipped burnout, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And it just goes back to, again, like wellness and like toxicity, and and just how important it is to kind of focus on, your overall wellness. I was just as I was doing this to myself,
Mm-hmm.
essentially, and
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one of the questions I want to ask you, is that, like, in relations to like wellness in the workplace, how often do you see people doing things to themselves versus the circumstances that just might be what they are?
You should pose this question in your group chat, and ask everybody else who is on the live because I think we've all experienced this. I've been in my 9 to 5. I don't want to talk about that too much. There could be a conflict of interest, but
Sure.
personally, I have been through a burnout myself, and that was when I was trying to be a leader. I was trying to manage a team in a brand new job after having gone through a breakup myself. And I landed this really awesome job. And I'm like, I'm going to be really good at it. I wasn't even sure if I was qualified, let alone had the training to be a leader. But that was the role that I was put into. So I was doing that. And then I decided to also continue to do my graduate program because, during my sort of personal chaos, I had to take a bit of a break. And I said, no, I'm going to go back and finish school. So I'm doing full-time work as a leader. I'm doing full-time graduate school. I'm having to travel to Vancouver every month. And there was
Yeah.
other stuff that was happening. My team was falling apart. I had to hire a new team. So all of these things kept coming at me. And I didn't realize what I was feeling because I was just kind of like zoned in on the task. I need to
Right.
get the job done. I need to get the project done. I need to do this debate. I need to do this presentation or whatever that may be. On top of that, I wanted to go work out and I continued hitting the gym because I never took a break from that. I went out with my friends. So, unlike you, I did all of those things. But
Right.
my burnout happened at a time when I guess I didn't even realize it was a burnout because there was another sort of personal crisis that happened right sort of in the middle of all of this. And you know how when you're like, oh, this is the straw that broke the camel's back, and it hit me, and everything just sort of apart. The symptoms of insomnia, not being able to remember my goddamn password. It would be like, oh, I just changed it and I can't remember my password anymore. Forgetting my keys, forgetting how to turn on or off the oven. Did I do it? Did I not? Where's my badge? Oh, it's in my bag this whole time and I'm looking all over it. Like all of these things. Did I put socks on? Like I legit did that twice one day when I went up and down the elevator in my condo building, not remembering if I had put my socks on. And then I was like, oh, I did. And then I'm like crying, being like, oh, this is what the hell's happening to me, right? So all of those symptoms were happening to me, but I continued down this path of, I got to get stuff done. I got to manage my team. I got to do stuff for my, colleagues in my program. So all of those people were almost ahead of my own personal wellness.
Right.
And it wasn't until my boss sort of was like, yeah. So when I finally realized that this was a burnout, it was almost like it was a bit too late, because I would have been able to take care of myself better had I known it sooner. But that's just how things go, right?
Yeah. Well, and the thing is that I think what a lot of people, a lot of people, specifically in my industry, know that they're in a burnout, keep looking at the fact that they have tasks that have to be completed, but aren't recognizing that they're not being as good as they could be if they took 2 seconds to themselves. If they made time for, making sure that they, went and saw their, kids' soccer practice, got over the fear of the things that are, the whole place is going to come crashing down if I'm not there 24 hours a day. And you know what? Decisions might happen if you leave for 5 seconds that you maybe wouldn't have made, but it's gonna be okay. Do you know what I mean? And the truth is that you're going to be better to somebody if you're in a position where you've slept, where you have had time with your family, where you feel like you're not chained to this job. You're excited to go to work every single day.
Yep.
But you have to start making decisions and plans so that happens every day. Like I've told you the story, I've told a lot of people the story of, when I got my dog, right?
Yeah.
Right. I got my first dog, Nelly, and I've done videos on it and stuff. But basically, before I got her, I had I never wanted to leave work. I always just wanted to be there, even if I didn't need to be there. I knew I didn't even need to be there. I just wanted to be there because it was just better than going home, right? In a lot of cases. And this is years and years ago. But I got my dog, and all of a sudden I had a reason to go home. And more importantly, I had somebody that needed me to come home, because without that, she needed food. She needed to be let out. She needed to go on walks. And all of a sudden I kind of built a purpose, right, for my home life, which then, without me even knowing it, and I was pretty efficient in my job, and I had delegated a lot off of my plate. Like I said, I was doing it to myself, being there as much as I was. But now I even started thinking even further ahead. What else can I offload and take on? What more responsibilities can I take in other areas so that I'm constantly learning and challenging myself? And what more can I offload, but still be able to go home, still be able to have the life, still have both? And that's, that's wellness once you figure that out. You know what I mean?
Yep.
That's really taking care of yourself at that point,
Yeah. And I guess we learned those lessons, because I learned a pretty valuable lesson after having gone through that experience, because it took me 3 months to recover. And the second time round during the pandemic, when work was starting to, just pile up, and we were feeling anxious just because of the way things were. And as a leader, I now can recognize my staff if they are in those sort of situations, because I know those symptoms for myself. Right. And I don't want anything to happen to my team. So I'm really, aware of how things are going, because I want to protect them and make sure that they're going to be okay. Because I have learned from experience and from reading a bunch of research on burnout that your second burnout is going to be worse and the recovery is going to be longer. So I did not want to put myself in a position where I'm going to have to do this again, and maybe I won't get to work for another 6 months or another 8 months, right? And I think our cells and our body and just the way things work. I don't know the psychology behind it. I'm not a physician, but there are things that our body remembers. There's memory, there's muscle memory. So you remember, how things were, and it's very easy to fall back into those old habits, and the recovery gets longer. Just like if you injure a muscle and if you injure it again, it's probably going to take you longer to, recover from that injury. So I am very diligent now and very conscious, not just for myself, but for the people around me, to make sure that they don't burn out, and that we're able to have these conversations to let people know that there's more to life, and that our wellness needs to be like front and center. Because you and I talked about it yesterday, YOLO,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
You only live once.
You only live once. And the thing is that when you start making that a type of priority in your workplace, as managers, as leaders, or just as team members, because I know so many team members that were not in leadership roles that led because that was something that was really important to them. So it was very inspiring, right? But it's like once you start to really focus in on the fact that a job has to be done, and we have to work, we have to make money, and we should be enjoying what we're doing, whether we own our own business, we're working for somebody else's business, we're trying to climb that corporate ladder, whatever it is. Jobs are super important, and they're super needed, obviously, right? We got to pay our bills. But here's what happens when you start paying attention to the fact that you, as a leader, somebody who has the ability to influence others, when you start making it a priority that not just yourself, but your teams around you understand that it's important to have a life outside of this place, it's important to take care of yourself, all of a sudden your teams start working harder and better for you because they know you're invested. You're invested in their well-being. And what happens is that they're going to turn around and be invested in you again.
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about, right? And then
Yep,
all of a sudden
yep.
you start acting and doing things like you used to be able to do, right? You don't walk around going, where are my keys? Did I forget to do this? You have 700 sticky notes all over your computer. That was me, right? So I didn't forget anything. Kelly, you remember. But you start getting more efficient and better at the job that you're doing, right?
Yeah.
All because you
100%.
just took a couple minutes to think about yourself, pay attention to
Yeah.
what your body needs,
Yeah. And it's a two-way street, right? Like you said,
Absolutely.
as leaders, we're talking about workplace wellness because we spend so much time, in the office and wherever we work. If as leaders, and that's been my biggest priority since I've been in my leadership role in my 9 to 5, is to know that I am there for my team and I can pick up on those cues, having been through it myself. But then I'm also expecting that from leaders above me, but that's a whole nother story. But that it literally is like an educational thing. You really need to teach your leaders to better support your team and to recognize that, their wellness, whatever that may be for them, that if I see someone working past 5:30, and if I see that consistently, I would like to remind them that, hey, what's up? Is there anything I can do to help you? Like, that's always been my number one sort of response, is what can I do to help you? Because I don't want to be the type of boss who walks out of the office at 5 and my team is still working till 6:30. I can never do that.
Sure.
But it does come from, and again, Wellness Shots was all about, it sort of stemmed from that idea of how do we educate people, whether it's my friends, whether it's my family. I have workaholics in my family. My brother's a workaholic. And so we end up becoming, so zoned in our jobs that we almost forget all of these other things that we're missing. Am I spending time to read a book? Am I spending time to do something spiritual? Am I exercising? That's a given, right? We want to exercise, but it's not a big deal if you just do yoga. But am I spending time to maybe learn about my finances? Because these are all things that are sort of important to be holistically, a more balanced individual.
Well, and the thing is too, is that, and I want you to kind of tell us, because I know that you have some triggers or some things that you can kind of pay attention to, but and why I think it's so important that you list out those things for all of us to hear is because it often sneaks up on you. You don't even realize it, right? You're going. And then all of a sudden one day something flips And what used to be passion filled and purpose driven now feels like an obligation. And you become
Yeah.
resentful. You become, all of a sudden, the money you make, doesn't matter if you could be making millions of dollars, it's not enough money to do what you're doing anymore. It also creates issues where you can't see solutions that are right in front of you because you're so toxic about the environment you're in. It's almost nothing will ever be fixed. We can't fix this. It's not, it'll never be good. You know what I mean? So you become closed off as a human being, and you stop being open to change and open to solutions, and all because one day it just snuck up on you. So,
Yeah.
like, what are some of the things that everybody can kind of watch out for that are like the starting stages of leading to like burnout or being in a toxic environment, even if you're doing it to yourself?
Yeah. I think one thing that I've had to really tell myself over and over again, having been through the experience and trying to, create wellness shots, is to really listen to your body. Like, really pay attention at the end of the day. Give yourself, 10 minutes, 5 minutes. Maybe it's your commute from your parking lot, from your office to your parking lot, where you have a little bit of time to sort of self-reflect on the day, and really pay attention to your heart rate, really pay attention to which muscle is it that's, when I get stressed out, Rebekah, I get a really like knotted shoulder and my neck hurts, and then the pain will radiate down my arm. It is classic Sumana is stressed out. It has happened to me like for many years. So I know that when that happens, it's almost a little too late because that shouldn't have happened in the first place. But that is my trigger. So when I start getting that physical symptom, I now need to really pivot very quickly. So whatever I was intending to do that week, I may have to kind of change that whole pattern and say, you know what, maybe I'm not going to be lifting weights 3 times a week. I may end up going to yoga 2 times a week, or maybe I'll book in to go for a massage, or whatever it is that maybe I need to go for brunch with my girlfriends, or whatever that may be. But
Right.
really pay attention to your body and take a little bit of time in your day to self-reflect and think about, was my day fulfilling, or did I kind of feel blah today? And if there's a lot of blahs by the end of the week, you may need to stop and think about what is it that's causing the blah, right? And your body is your best, like, and the most immediate solution, because it will tell you when things
Yeah.
are not okay.
No, I know for myself, when I'm starting to feel like super stressed out or nervous about an upcoming project or something that, is going on, or, whatever it is, I start not sleeping. That's the first thing for me. I wake up, 100 times in the night, and I've now recognized that, like, instantly, that okay, that's not healthy. I can't keep waking up in the middle of the night because I'm stressed out, especially when I'm stressed out about things I don't have control over. I mean, so
Mm-hmm.
much for me was, in the last 10 months was, the pandemic, and what, a lot of my clients were experiencing, and what I'm seeing happen, and what I'm experiencing. And it was, it does get to a point where you start to just take it all on you. Like I could have a magic wand and get rid of it, and I couldn't, and it was keeping me up at night. And I remember talking to you about that, and you're like, you have to focus in on the things that you can control, because you can't control that, right? And I was like, I
Yeah.
know, but it even happens even to the people who know it. Even though I knew that that was happening, even though you know that you're sore now, it's still hard to see it and stop it before it gets there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you get better when you
Yeah.
know your symptoms. So for you, for me, it's insomnia. I think a lot of people, insomnia is a really big trigger. I even made a whole video about it, saying that we shouldn't be glamorizing this idea of not sleeping. So when my staff comes and tells me, I worked with someone years ago, and this individual was never sleeping and would always come in late to work. And I started noticing that this was sort of a pattern. So, why are you not sleeping? I had to, kind of ask very gently.
Sure.
And then I realized that there's probably a bigger issue here. And I'm not going to be upset with you because you come into work late. It's probably because you're dealing with some other stuff. So maybe you should take some time off. So I gave my team member the option to find a better solution, maybe take 3 weeks off, get some resources, get some sleep, and come back. But you come into work late every day is not helpful for you, and it's not helpful for the organization either. But for me, your wellness and your well-being is more important because work is going to go on regardless, right?
Sure.
But as leaders, again, we should really be paying attention to, insomnia, aches and pains, or, people being grumpy or irritated, or, I think all of those little triggers that are out of the norm that you see people experiencing. If you figure those out as leaders, that's great. But for yourself, I know my triggers to the T. So I know exactly when I need to pivot, and I'm getting better so that this doesn't get like, 10 times worse, so I can change. And so hopefully to you, you know that, 2 days of insomnia is, I need to make a change right away.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that, there's something there, obviously it's just as important for you yourself to be paying attention to these things as it is for you, to make sure that your team isn't experiencing burnout, right? It is absolutely, we talked about that, it's a two-way street here. But I like what you're saying there with, kind of really paying attention to um, out of the norm behaviors that happen. I know that I've, with many of my teams, if I had somebody who kind of came in late, like let's say 3 days in a row, and they were never late ever, I knew something was going on, right? You know it. And here's part of management 101 is kind of really understanding the person, learning the person that you're managing, and understanding that they are a person, right? It is personal. You know what I mean? I say that all the time. That whole phrase is not personal, it's business. It is personal because we're all people, right? We're people that serve people, that work with people, that, it's all about people. So to take the word personal out of it doesn't make sense. But, paying attention to that and letting them know that you recognize it, because here's what happens too is that if an employee does not feel like they can come to you with anything that's going on with themselves, right? If an employee does not feel like they're allowed to be tired, or they're allowed to be upset that they missed their kids' soccer games, or they're allowed to, want to go, have a Friday night off. If they feel like they can't do that, you're going to create a toxic work environment. It's just what's going to happen, right? Which is going to lead to more burnout for you as the leader, who then has to pick up the slack because you don't have a team, right? And you're constantly trying to rebuild a team, rebuild a team, rebuild a team. Now, here's the thing is that, there's things that just have to happen in different industries, right? There's just tasks that have to be completed, and sometimes in the middle of December, guess what, it's going to be a 16-17 hour day in the food and beverage industry. It's because it's the busiest time of the year. Okay. But if it's 16 and 17 hours, or 14 or 12, or even, anything more than like normal all year long, and the expectation is that people are going to be able to keep up with that, they're not. They will never be able to do that. They will always get to a point where they will throw their hands in the air and they will say, enough is enough. I can't give more than I'm receiving.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's also important for organizations, whether it's in food and beverage, whether it's in healthcare, whether wherever. I think this idea sort of fits for everybody, is to recognize that we're all not the same, right? I may be able to work 16-hour days for 2 weeks, but you may be able to work 16-hour days for 5 weeks, right? Your threshold and my threshold could be different. Again, because I've been through a burnout, I don't want to do that again. So I'm now setting these boundaries, and I know what my body can and cannot handle. So we need to sort of look at our team, not as, all of these people are going to perform the exact same way. And that, we may need to have these contingencies built in. And I've said that probably 100 times,
That's great advice. That really is. And, until you just said it, I didn't even realize that was something that I've done in the past. I remember creating schedules with my girls, like Kelly, if you're still listening, Kelly and Marissa, we would be writing schedules together and really taking into consideration, the person, what they can handle, what days off they're going to need, why they're going to need that day off because they're just coming off this work week going into next week. We would actually sit down and actually strategize that, you know, keeping in mind people's thresholds, you know, and not taking it to a point where, you know, they and then have to take 3 weeks off because they're literally, you know, exhausted, or they cut their hand off or their fingers off. You know what I mean? That's
Oh
when injuries
God.
start happening in our industry
Yeah.
too, you know. So that's
Yeah.
interesting that you um that's a great example, and you know, I'm glad that you brought that up for sure.
Yeah. And I think where we all, as we all have such different relationships with our employees, with our staff, with our teams, and the other way around too. Like I'm a pretty open, giving person. And I have a relationship like that with most of the people that I interact with. But there's a lot of people that don't open up to me because maybe they are not comfortable opening up to me, and that's totally okay. But I need to be able to respect that they are not going to share everything. I don't know everything about everyone's families or anything like that. But if they're willing to share that with me as a manager, I am willing to listen. So I always say to people, like, really to listen to your team. I could go for coffee with four of my teammates, and one of my coffee walks would just be me talking 60% of the time and them talking 40% of the time because they're not really comfortable talking it. And that's totally okay because I understand that from those bits and pieces of information that they've shared, I know enough to manage and understand their threshold and understand, what it is that they bring to the table. So we really should be paying attention to our bodies, but also really listening to what our teams are telling us and, be able to kind of work with that.
No, I think that's you're 100% right. And then I think too, just to kind of keep in mind that, you know, in a lot of cases, people want to do a good job for you. They want to
Mm,
show strength for you. They want to, you know, kind of be in a situation where they're always available for you. You know, there's not a lot of people out there, that at least that I've come across, that are, you know, just don't want to do a job. They want to do as little as possible and go home and collect a paycheck. I don't know a lot of those types of people. I really don't. Everybody that I've ever hired, trained, built my teams with, legit wanted to be there and was excited to be a part of a team. But it is really important to also pay attention, you know, not just listen, but pay attention to them and what they're not saying as well, I think. Because, you know, the respect there, like, you know, an employee might be, you know, almost, I don't want to let them down. I don't want to disappoint them. I don't want to, I don't want them to know that I can't handle this much, right? The
yeah.
feelings, those show up in body language. You can see
Yes.
it if you're paying attention. And I think that's just as important to maintaining, you know, a workplace that isn't toxic for people, that isn't somewhere that people don't want to be, you know.
Hmm. And you know what? People will tell you. I think when I was sort of falling apart and unable to remember my passwords, I was really lucky to have a supervisor who recognized it and basically told me, "You need to leave the premise. I think you need to take a break. And if you don't, I'm calling security." I'm like, "Okay, I'm leaving."
Right, right, right.
Right? Because you just sat there looking at me thinking, like, this is not normal. This is not normal that I walk into the office at 10 o'clock in the morning, because I never do. I'm
Right.
very punctual. So when you started noticing these behaviors, like I had mentioned earlier about these odd behaviors, like, why is Sumana walking to the office at 10 o'clock in the morning and she's walking into the reception to get a visitor pass because she doesn't have a tag? These are all weird things that people were watching and observing, and I didn't know that until
Right.
one day I was scooted out of the office to say, "You need to take a break. I don't care whether you like it or not." So I really did respect that, because at my vision was blurred. I wasn't able to recognize because I thought I could just keep going. It's
Right.
totally normal. But other people can recognize that. So we, as supervisors, managers, and people in leadership roles, should really be paying attention to our teams, listening to the words spoken and unspoken. So that's beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, and I think, you know, too, I couldn't tell you how many times when I was, you know, beyond exhausted, I'd walk into, you know, the walk-in. That's like the walk-in freezer or refrigerator.
Okay.
But you would go in, and anybody who's in this industry, you'd walk in, you'd get in there, and you don't know why you're there, so you have to walk back out, you have to go back in, and you have to do it like 1,000 times. And I think it's in those moments where we would all just look at each other and we'd be like, okay, time to go home. You can't, you're literally, you're at your breaking point, you cannot do this anymore. And so yeah, I mean, it's good that you had somebody that kind of said that to you. And I know that I needed somebody to say that to me. I oftentimes,
Mm-hmm.
even though I'm really good for my team members as a leader or being in a leadership position, I definitely was never the one that wanted to admit that. So I definitely needed like my team members to be like, you don't normally mess up like this. Come on, go home.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, people listening, watching, we should really understand that taking a break or, when your body can't handle it, we're not machines. We have a threshold. We're going to collapse otherwise. So it is not a weakness to take a break. Especially I think also for women in leadership roles, it's almost like you shouldn't be taking a break. Why are you taking a break? You should be totally fine. And for me, I've sort of felt that, there's women that have families and kids and they're okay. I'm single, and why am I now entitled to this break? But I don't think we should look at it that way. I think we should look at it as we are all individuals trying to navigate through this journey. And I may have thousands of other things in my life that you may not be aware of, but me taking a break is not a sign of weakness. It is in fact a sign of strength, because I'm putting my body first, I'm putting my life first, putting my wellness front and center, and really taking control of what it is that's important, because I want to live a happy, healthy life. I, don't want to be in this state of chronic fatigue, anxiety, stress, pain, and all of these, to be honest, I think can have a long-term impact on your health. So take a break. If your body's saying no, it's not lying to you.
You know what I love about too, though, like about the, when you start recognizing the fact that you have to take care of yourself, you have to incorporate wellness into your life, whatever that looks like for you. And if it means that you're just literally taking the day off and you still aren't exercising, no judgment, okay? That's not what we're talking about, but what I love about it is that when you start recognizing that it's so necessary and you start paying attention to it, all of a sudden it opens you up to asking for help. Okay. Which leads to relying on the people that are around you, which leads to being a better and more effective leader, trainer, manager, team member. Okay. Which then can lead to, guess what? Better products, better services, elevated products, right? In pay increases, because now guess what, we're also making more money as a business.
Yep.
It's so crazy when you really go all the way back all of those steps and what it can lead to. It's like we don't think about it like that, but I know it's to be true. I know it's to be true. you
Mm-hmm.
know
Yeah. People taking, would I rather have someone take, random sick days, because their wellness is off and they're feeling burnt out, stressed out? Or is it beneficial for the individual to basically understand that, hey, I'm unwell, I need to take a break, and take a little bit of a longer break that is more scheduled, which is you have a plan, you can get the help that you need, body can sleep and rest. That to me, their productivity is going to be better when they come back to work.
Mhm.
They are going to be well rested. I'm going to have a much better staff coming back into my team.
Right.
My performance for the team is going to improve. So it's a win-win. So nobody wants someone in and out, which is what I ended up doing when I was kind of leaning towards this burnout. There was a point where I took so many sick days. I would just wake up in the middle of the night at 2 o'clock in the morning. I can't come into work today. And I was doing a lot of that because I just was unable to get out of bed.
Mhm.
But nobody recognized those days off that I was taking, because it
Right.
was very unnatural for me to do that until many months later when I finally crashed. And then I took a really long break. But maybe that 3 months would have been 1 month had someone identified that these random days off I was taking was maybe leading to something even more fatal. So I totally understand what you're saying. I think we really should be, if you think about the overall productivity, you're better off just pausing, taking care of yourself, and then coming back, rejuvenated, revived, re-energized, and paying attention to, all of your wellness dimensions.
I love it. I love it. Is there any other things that you want to kind of raise awareness around wellness? Anything else that you'd like to share with, everybody listening in?
I'm a big advocate of community. I really do believe that we would be healthier as individuals if we have healthier communities. So I really, empower people to take that step and, really go from knowing to doing. And I know that gap can be really difficult because you're like, yeah, I know I need to do all of these things. I know these are all important to me, but then how do I take this leap of faith to make it happen? So once you get there, it's a beautiful place. You're going to be so much more healthier. So let's bridge that gap, right? Let's just close that gap and let's bring a community together, because I really want to see at some point when this pandemic is over and we're, better as, even as humans right now, I think everyone's just so stressed out, so depressed, so anxious.
Yeah.
And I've read, studies and data about, anxiety, depression, antipsychotic medications have all risen, and it's fine. I think a lot of people are experiencing anxiety in 2020, but
Sure.
some of us have been experiencing anxiety for years before that, right?
Right.
But I really want people to start to become healthier communities and take that, put yourself front and center, like just do you, you are your most important person. So once you figure that out, it's all super duper easy.
I love it. You're awesome. You are so amazing. Thank you so much for, coming on today and sharing your wisdom and your knowledge with everyone.
Love
You're
it.
special. And I'm so glad that we got to do this. And I'm grateful to have met you and now have you in my life. And listen, guys, her and we have plans, big plans in the future. We're not, you know what I mean? We got things we're going to be doing, that's for sure. Because,
Yeah.
so much of what you do is so much, and so much of what I do, I'm definitely about, solutions and getting to the solution and how people can do that. And you really focus on how to fix the person from the inside out. And I think together that could be magic for sure. So
I love it.
thank
I'm
you.
I'm grateful to Garrett. I don't know if Garrett's still there, if he's left
He's
already.
here. He just commented. I think he's still here.
I love it. So I'm grateful to Garrett for this introduction, and I'm happy. I know whoever's watching, I'm thankful for you guys to come and spend the hour with us. It's been super fun talking about wellness. I could talk about wellness all day long. I feel like it's all I do. But it's important. I think it's important to do that. And I'm really, really happy that I didn't cancel on you and I was
Aw.
able to, get through the crisis that I'm experiencing. But thank you so much, Rebekah.
Of course, of course. Before we log off, I want to kind of wrap up this conversation with what I'm about to launch. Actually, it'll be made available, I think, tomorrow. And I am launching my 4-week masterclass. It's going to be from crisis to cash flow. It's going to be 4 weeks long. You're going to have trainings. And we're also going to be able to meet in person, or well, not in person, but virtually through Zoom twice a week and have group roundtable discussions. I'm going to be dripping video content and tons of information your way. And then in those group discussions, you'll be able to come in and kind of ask any question that's specific to your business and get the answers. I'm going to teach you about what it means to take the wheel of your business. And a lot of it does have to do with being burnt out and deciding I'm done, I'm over it, I'm not allowing this to happen anymore, and I'm ready to fight and make the changes necessary. We're going to be going into the art of leadership and team development. That's going to be 2 weeks long because it's a big one. Okay. And then I'm also going to be teaching you about how to create a consistent customer experience. I have a bonus lesson coming your way. Again, it's going to be awesome. I'm so excited about it. And what's even better is that I have a discount coupon code for everyone in Leadership Revolution that brings the total to $155. Okay. So it's 4 weeks long. Like I said, we meet in person twice a week. I keep saying in person because I can't, it's almost like this isn't in person anymore.
Yeah,
You know,
I think we can say that is in person.
right.
Yeah.
Anybody out there that is interested in receiving more information, like I said, we'll be posting a ton of information in here. But if you're interested in receiving more information, please reach out, or let me leave a comment in here, and I will be happy to reach out to you. I'll share the coupon code to get you that massive discount. It's originally $850. So this code will bring it down to $155. I know that there's a lot of businesses out there right now that are suffering extremely hard times, and I want to be a solution. I want to be a support system. So again, I just appreciate everyone listening in. If there's any questions or if you want to know any information, please, like we said, reach out, and we would love to, chat with you. And again, if you want anything specific with Sumana, let me know. Leave it in the comments. She's in the group so she can see this. And again, even with, implementing COVID-19 policies and procedures in your establishment, if there's anything you're just not sure on or you're not clear on, she's a great resource for that as well. Okay, so I want to wish everyone an amazing rest of your evening. And thank you, Sumana. I really appreciate it again for coming on. This was so much fun. I love the hell out of you, girl. You're awesome.
I love it. Thank you.
Our next leadership talks is not on the books right now. I will let you know as soon as I have finalized the details on that, but I can't wait to see you all at the next leadership. And we'll be seeing you guys soon. Cheers.
Bye.